we were going vacationing. I had retired about 10 months earlier and had a sailboat, and we were going to go to the Keys and hang out for 5 or 6 weeks. Never made it. Got down to about Jupiter when the bacteria got into the bacteria came in through my feet through superficial cuts I had on my feet, and it caused blisters and a fever. And instead of running to the hospital, I decided to wait till the next morning, thinking I was going to recover from it. And in 02, I had that happened in 06 and 02, I had Guillain-Barré, which I'm sure you all have an idea what that is. And in 95, I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I've been through the circuit, so to speak. But anyways, what this did to me was, we had gotten a dog for an alarm system for if someone tried to get on the boat when we were anchored out. He would bark and make noise or something, so we would know this, and we could react to it. But anyways, he wouldn't do his business on the boat. We tried all kinds of things to make him do it, and he wouldn't. So we'd have to anchor out just to let him go to the bathroom. And one of those places we anchored out, it had an oyster beds that we ended up walking through to get ashore. And that's how I contracted this bacteria. Okay. And so anyways.
Just get a little bit more history.
All right.
Let's do a little bit more of the clinical side of the. Are you diabetic?
Yeah, I'm diabetic. I became diabetic from all this different medications and stuff that was going on.
So
I started becoming diabetic. What I mean by starting, they thought I was diabetic when I was doing the Guillain-Barré because I was working at a resort property and my favorite fruit was pineapple. So they would cut up a whole fresh pineapple and send it down to me with one of the people coming to visit me. And I'd sit there in the course of a day or two and eat this pineapple, okay? Well, there was so much sugar in it, it elevated my blood sugar levels to the point where they started giving me insulin to offset my blood sugar levels. And I think that caused me to become more diabetic than anything, because I wasn't aware that they were giving me insulin until they'd been doing it for a while. And
you weren't aware?
I wasn't aware of it, no.
Huh.
You know, well, I wasn't totally comprehensive for a period of time.
Okay. During the hospitalization
Yeah.
and all that. What happened with his upper extremities, how he lost his hand and his fingers on that left side, what actually occurred, the progression of his situation. So lost the lower extremities as a result of flesh-eating bacteria, and then
I developed gangrene in my upper, and they had cut me in a chemically induced coma for 90% of the time I had been hospitalized up to this time. And as I was coming out of this coma effect, they physically made me aware of my situation with my hands. And even though I was awake and they were talking about it, it was kind of going in, and I kind of understood what they were saying, because when my mother died, she went through this thing with her hands turning black and stuff. So I kind of knew where I was in my life circle. Anyways, and so when I became coherent enough, they explained to me that when I moved on from Jupiter, they were going to transport me up to Gainesville, to the burn unit in Gainesville. And so I was a month in Jupiter, and at that time they had removed my legs and they had stopped the gangrene from going any further than it had. But they elected not to do anything about it until I got to Gainesville. And when I got to Gainesville, they put me under, and then they took my left fingers and my right hand. This wasn't caused from the bacteria. This was caused from the medications that they were giving me at Jupiter, creating a issue with blood flow. How much of this medication do we want to give them to send the blood either to the heart or to his extremities. And in trying to regulate that, that's how I developed the gangrene in my hands. Okay?
So pretty darn intense, okay? To know that that occurred as a result of, I want to say doctor error, but look, this is medicine.
Inventory problem.
This is what we deal with every day, and this is what people have to deal with every day that are in their position. I've got multiple patients that have gone through this. So it's a reality, and you have to negotiate that topic with the client properly, right? You have to walk that line. So just whatever that line is, you have to negotiate that for yourself. Okay, so long history, right, guys? Serious stuff going on. This was the most recent, the flesh-eating bacteria was the most recent problem. He mentioned Guillain-Barré and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So been through a huge amount of stuff. And I have worked with Mr. Fisher over the course of 10?
Well, since '06.
Since '06. So I've seen him since a while back. And we have made him multiple things over time, and he has worked with multiple, 3 or 4 different prosthetists over that time. Three different prosthetists. And you can see he loves to personalize things and make it his own, so that's pretty darn cool. One of the most mechanically inclined / aggressive guys I've met building things on his own. This is a homemade swim paddle. Okay, so he didn't make this. He had a guy that next door neighbor that helped him make it, but rigged up, and I supplied the lock, and they mounted it. So that's like that strapping mechanism on that AFO you guys saw, very similar. And then basically uses that to swim. How often are you going swimming?
Well, I haven't been because of my open wounds.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so he's got some open wounds on his limb. We'll take a look at those today so you guys can see that as well. I haven't seen you for 2 years?
2, 3 years.
2, 3 years at this point. So at this point, I don't know what to expect under the liners. I obviously have a long history with him, so I know quite a bit about him. And there's lots of complications, and we're going to focus on the upper extremity today. I do want to take a look at his legs so you guys see that, just in case he can't make it back. We're going to invite you back for the lower extremity section if you would like.
Yeah, I can do that.
I'd love to have you come. But I do want to look at everything and kind of almost do an eval of sorts. But as far as losing your limbs, you got the disease, you got flesh-eating bacteria, and you ended up at Kindred, from my memory, my recollection. And when you go to Kindred, that's a specialty hospital, and a lot of people don't come out of there. So he was one of the lucky few that actually, literally survived. And like I said, has been a phenomenal patient over the course of years, and has done amazing stuff with what he's got. So on top of all that, he's got back problems. Okay, he's got a lumbar spine issue. Give me a little history on that real quick.
Well, I originally started with my lower back. I started having lower back problems when I was younger. One of my previous wives used to walk on my back to crack my back for me to relieve the pressure. And it felt good at the time, but I guess it wasn't a good thing to have done because I'm now, I don't know if that's part of my problem or not, but my L4 and L5 are in poor shape. Not only that, but I have such a calcium buildup on my spine that I went to have those electrodes put in my back to relieve my lower back pain, and the doctor could not place the needles because of the amount of calcium buildup on the spinal cord. And then I also have a problem on my C1 and C2 and C3 or C1.
Way up high.
Yeah, at the top. So I got issues up here on the top of my neck now too.
So on top of all that, you're on you saw on pain patches?
Yeah, I'm on a 75 fentanyl patch, and I also take Oxycontin.
Okay, and pretty much can't get off the stuff, right? I mean, it's pretty much impossible to deal with that.
when they say it's addictive, it's putting it lightly. Okay, it takes control of your body. I call it monkey on my back. Okay, you talk about
And you're taking that because of your
pain levels.
which pain? Your back?
People would think it would be for the back, and it's not. It's for my legs. Okay, it keeps the throbbing in my legs under control, which I found to be kind of weird because I don't think it does anything for my back pain issues. It might provide a blocker, which I'm not aware of, but when I'm low on it, besides having the addiction reaction, my legs start bothering me. And what I mean by bothering me, I get severe, different types of pain. I get where my legs will start shaking, like having a seizure, okay? And they'll just, one or both, or sometimes it's the left one, sometimes it's the right one, and they'll shake uncontrollably, and not all over the place, just in whatever position I'm in. It's normally when I'm laying down, when I'm in a relaxed mode. And they'll just go on for about 20 minutes, half hour or so. And is there pain with that? No. But there's other pains that I get. I get the electrode pain, which gets severe.
Are you on medications for that?
The same thing. The fentanyl patches do. Well, I also take gabapentin, which you have to take 1,800 units for it to have any real effect in helping relieve pain levels.
So a big thing for him, pain mitigation as much as possible. Super difficult to manage that. You'll find that with a lot of amputees, a lot of nerve pain, the gabapentins, the other nerve drugs to sort of minimize that pain and discomfort that they're having in those. Very commonly prescribed. It is not considered a narcotic, but could you say what you get out of it, if you can say, or?
It helps with my legs.
Yeah.
The gabapentin definitely helps with my legs. When I have forgotten to take a pill, I get the 600s and I take them 3 times a day. So if I forget to take one of them, on the second day of not having taken it, I start feeling it in my legs. And it reminds me, you didn't take your gabapentin yesterday, so you gotta, and you can't get caught up, but you get back on your schedule and it gets it back into a controlled state.
Okay, so quite a bit of medications. Would you have to, how many pills a day? What just a number?
Well, between the oxy and the gabapentin, it's 6, and then I have my patch, which is, it's supposed to last up to 3 days, but if I get 2 days out of a patch, I'm doing good.
So are you able to manage your medications pretty well? You guys do a good job of that?
Well, except for the fentanyl patch, it's a constant battle because of all the liners and cover-ups from this stuff. My skin doesn't breathe the way a normal person does, so therefore I sweat more. And when I put the patch on, okay, my body realizes where I'm putting that patch. Okay, it's like my body's got its own mind when it comes to that fentanyl patch, and it draws it somehow or other elevates your body temperature. Your body feels warmer in the spot where you put that patch after you've had it on for a while. Okay, and it's not because it makes your body warmer, it's because of the type of medication I think it is. That your body's reacting because it knows it's going to draw more of it by your body temp going up.
So does the patch last less time than it should?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then sweating causes it to last less time. So it's a constant battle, and you can't get, like if you run out on day 27 and you can't call the doctor up and say, I need 3 more or another patch or another 2 patch. No, there is no more. You gotta manage what you're given to make it last.
And this is heavily regulated in the industry now, so you're going to find that it's more and more difficult for patients to get pain meds. You know, even the pharmacies are now reporting to a central location where they can manage your pain med distribution. So that when one doctor gives you a prescription for pain med, another doctor across town for a different condition cannot give you another prescription for a similar or same pain med. So you can't be overprescribed.
And CVS has limited the level of pain med in the fentanyl patches that they will dispense. You could have a prescription for 75 or 100 or 150, okay? And CVS will only give you 50. That has become a new company standard with them.
So the reason I'm going to dipping into this is what you're going to see. You're going to see amputees out there having to manage the medications, and it's a real thing, and it's going to create major problems for them when they run out, and you're going to be seeing them during those periods of time, and they're going to have major issues. They're going to have withdrawals. They're going to have excess pain. You may not even be able to work with them. You may literally be just trying to help them manage how to get more medication or how to manage it better. You know, make sure that they don't run out of it. So just be aware. It's not always on the primary care physician, or there's no nurses involved at this point, and it's them going to the doctors trying to manage their medications. So kind of an aside, but I wanted to make sure you guys understood how common this is, and it is very common for people to have to do this. So obviously he's what I would call a quadrilateral amputee, missing the tips of his fingers on his left hand. He's a wrist disarticulation on the right side, and a bilateral below the knee amputee on his lower extremities. He has had and has obviously multiple myoelectric designs, and myoelectric, familiar with that term? Kind of read a little bit about it at this point. Are picking up signals with the electrodes on the muscles, and therefore basically opens the terminal device at the end through just activation of those muscles, so it senses it. It senses that electrical stimulation at the top of the skin. So those electrodes have to be placed in a very specific spot, and it has to be tested for that. So those placements are very, very specific, and you have to work kind of long and hard to find those exact locations. So he's got multiple myoelectric, 1, 2, 3. Is there any more? Three total at this point. And that's over the course of the last, 12 years or so. And how many terminal devices over the course of time?
Just these two.
Just these two. And where's your Greifer?
Oh, that one's gone.
Long dead?
Well,
sold?
I sold it. Yeah, I sold it on eBay. I got like $350 for it.
All right. So it's a terminal device literally worth $10,000+ and he was able to get $800 out of it. 800 or 300? $300. I gave him extra 500 to it. Didn't get. So not very much worth on the open market, but when we bill an insurance company, it's for a lot of money because they're high-tech devices. This, I forget how much this motion control is.
That one because that one had the wrist thing in it.
And so this has you can change the angle of the wrist.
This one isn't. I don't have that in this one.
Okay.
This was my original.
And
the actual electrode unit in the arm had to be replaced.
Okay.
Because it, I guess, shorted out or whatever.
Okay. So I'm going to send around one of the myoelectrics and we'll continue to talk about it.
That's a heavier one.
Yeah, so you can feel the weight, and this is just the shell. So here's just the shell with no batteries or anything in it, but you guys can take a look down in there.
The reason I kept that one is I'm hoping maybe I can talk Rick into giving me a couple new electrodes to throw into that one.
You might be able to find a way. All right, so
that was my second arm, the black one.
Okay.
This was my first one. This was the first myoelectric arm I had. And when I got it, it had external batteries to it, where you remove the batteries and put them in a charger, and then you put another battery. I think it was 2 batteries, wasn't it? Yeah, it worked on 2 3.7 volt batteries. And I met a gentleman who was a computer guy, and that's what he did for a living. And he was down in Bunnell.
So that goes with
I
that one.
took one of these arms to him because I was told from the prosthetic person that this arm was no longer workable. They could not repair it anymore. So I gave it to him, which was this one. And what we did was we turned this into an internal battery package where I use what do they call remote control RC batteries, like you put in a remote control airplane or a boat or whatever, you know.
So kind of a step 2, 3 above your typical individual that's gonna basically outsource and buy his own batteries and basically look things up. And,
Those were the factory batteries that came with the unit originally.
right. And so you bought some stuff online, found some things that looked like they would be compatible,
Right.
And rigged things up to the best of his ability. So pretty darn impressive. Just as another aside, 3-wheel bike that you had made, still have it?
No, I sold that.
So a 3-wheel bike he had made, a pedal bike, but put a motor on the back, and pretty much designed the whole thing.
Three and a
trike.
half horsepower.
Yeah, gas motor on it.
Yeah, it was it's a sheep, no, it was a T, I can't remember.
Anyway, pretty impressive
Yeah.
Altogether, being able to do all this himself. Don't expect that from 99.9% of your patients out there. And, you know, it makes it difficult on the prosthetist because you're trying to work with them and they're messing with things. But, seriously, I mean, right? But with a guy that has a good attitude and that has some know-how and has some really good thoughts, it's helpful. Because then you kind of troubleshoot together and how do you want to work it. And then the flip side of that is then how do I bill for those things? Right? How do I make money on that as a businessman? So you have to consider all of that I have to consider all of that when I'm working with somebody. But understand that he's not unlike a lot of guys out there that want to tinker. He does more than tinker. But guys are going to work on these things and they're not supposed to, but he does, and that's what my reality is. That's going to be your reality. And when you're seeing the patient, you got to document that. You got to make sure that you document that they messed with it. If you can tell that they have or they admit that they did, you want to document it in the notes, just so it's there. So if we have to justify something to the insurance company, that can be potentially used as a justification because it was modified. And just because he did it doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't obviate him from getting something new because he messed with it. Okay, we have documentation to say it was messed with outside of my realm. So take the terminal device off to show them how that comes off. Okay, mind if where'd the other one go? So go ahead and twist it just like you did. So spin it. There you go. So go ahead and you can separate it. Look at the connection points. I just want you to see how that goes together.
It goes back the same way it came off.
You just kind of snap it.
You want to start it in the position you normally don't use it. A lot of people leave the hooks turned down, and I don't. I work with it turned up, so I put it on in the turn down mode because you got to get it at least half a turn to come on, and this is where I normally use it. So I'll feed utensils through here, whether it be screwdrivers or something like a kitchen knife or something, or to cut up your food, or your silverware when you sit down to eat.
So very similar to the tenodesis, he's come up with ways to hold it. It's meant to hold utensils. And the tenodesis that young lady was using in the video, she did a pretty amazing job of figuring out how to use that and making that work for her. So major limitations with a myoelectric is it's not water friendly. Can't get this thing wet, and you have to be very careful with it that way.
What
does
about
it
sweating?
operate?
What about sweating?
Yeah. So
Sweating is a big problem.
Yeah. So when it gets down in there, especially if the sweat gets down the outside of the device and enters here, that's a major problem.
I came up with my own strap system because this was the lightest and easiest way for me to do it, was to get I drive the vehicle, okay?
He drove here.
I drove up here, and I have a 3-wheel motorcycle, a 1500cc Suzuki trike, okay? And I took the clutch arm off of it and put a centrifugal type clutch to it. So all I do is release the pressure on the throttle, and I can shift whether it be up or down. This is my second trike. The first one, I destroyed the transmission in 2.5 months by putting a pingle shifter on it, which is what they use for racing motorcycles. But that's also used in conjunction with a arm clutch. So you release the clutch, and then this pingle shifter slams a pin against the shifter to shift your gear, whether it be up or down. But it's all done electronically, and it's all done in a matter of less than a second to shift it.
So, important point of all that, right, to bring it right home, is that he's very capable, knows his stuff, is able to use his prosthesis very well. Obviously, if he's had time on the trike, he goes out, he's driving the trike. The other issue is, does the terminal device come off when he's riding the bike?
First time going around the bend, and I ended up sideswiping the elderly people. We were with 4 other friends on bikes, and we were all making this corner, and in turning, I put so much pressure this way against the arm, it caused the hand to come off.
Now, was that a myoelectric, or was that was not this?
That was a myoelectric.
Myoelectric, so it popped out.
It popped off, so now I'm with just the arm part of and the hook end is still attached to the spinner knob, which is attached to the handlebar. So that's hanging, my hook is hanging off the handlebar, and I'm sitting there with just this from here back, and my left hand, and I couldn't get the corner made enough to where I just lightly bumped this car, but enough to where he responded. And when he got
the double bird.
and when he got the green light, they just took off, because with 5 of us on bikes there, he just didn't feel comfortable with getting out of his car to see what kind of damage there was.
He wanted out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, so he didn't even want to have anything to do with you at that point.
It's good to have friends.
Right, in a big old group.
Yeah.
So, when you're moving your hands around, your left hand in particular, is your right hand, I see it opening and closing occasionally on the right terminal device, is that involuntary or is that voluntary? Involuntary, so he's talking with both of his hands. So it's opening involuntary because he's literally activated, he's talking with his hands and his hook is doing this business. So it's sometimes uncontrolled. The sweat can get down in there and cause, a little bit odd electrical connections between where the sweat is and sort of the muscles are not quite exactly lining up right, so he's going to get the activity inappropriately moving the terminal device. So some big issues with the terminal device as well are the weight. You notice the weight of that arm as it's gone around is it's not light. And I sent the shell around so you guys could see how much the shell weighs in comparison to the arm with the actual device and batteries attached. So when you kind of are lifting that up, recognize that there's a significant amount of weight. So if you have a patient that has a really short residual limb, which he does not, he's got a very long residual limb, a wrist articulation, okay? Too long. So I'm going to stop right there. Describe that and why.
They took this off just past the wrist. And because they left it so long, it minimizes what I can get in the way of attachments unless I want my hook to be out here somewhere.
So do me a favor, stick your arms both out equal in front of you.
They're about the same. Now on that one is about 2 inches longer because it's got the wrist thing in it.
Wrist flexion unit, that's what it's called,
And then,
right? So you push
and then
a
you
button and it
got
flexes the wrist.
got the other thing that makes it so you can rotate your wrist.
Okay.
Don't they have?
There are different, there are rotators, mechanical, motorized rotators. So a person can double, flinch something and you put it in there different ways and it will literally spin it in 360. So just so that the hand can be positioned this way.
And that just adds length to the arm.
And weight.
And weight. So, but my thinking is if this was just 2 inches shorter, because it being 2 inches longer does nothing to help me. Okay, if it was 2 inches shorter, it would give me more options.
So the caveat to that, I'm going to counter what he said, just one thing that it does help with is distal bearing. So he can put quite a bit of weight straight through the wrist in that unit. And I don't know, you can take quite a bit of pressure on the end of it. So because he was amputated there, he can put quite a bit of weight on the distal end of his residual limb. And he can literally push up with it.
Yeah.
Now, if you truly did a transradial amputation, you would have 2 cup bones and they're like, they're pretty darn
They
sharp.
want to glue them together with some crazy glue or something?
No, no. I know you try to go in there and do that yourself too. So, yes, it definitely is better because of the weight bearing. Definitely is worse because of the length that it, it's too much length. So there are,
Yeah, pluses
pros and
and
cons.
minuses.
Yeah, pros and cons to
I
each.
never thought of that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because every day I'm putting weight on that, getting
A lot of
up
weight.
when I'm getting up and stuff.
You'll see.
When I'm trying to get my legs to lock in, I mean, you put your legs on, even though they're on, they're not completely on until you stand up and you put the bearing of your body weight to it. And then you'll sink into the pins even further. And getting up, I'm using both arms to leverage myself.
Putting directed pressure straight down
Yeah.
the end of the terminal device.
Yeah.
How many, have you bent or broken the tips?
One arm, I broke the tips off. But these are better ones. These are supposed to be titanium.
Those are aluminum.
Those are aluminum.
It's supposed to be titanium. So,
You get
lots.
told things sometimes.
So, lots of high-tech gadgetry. There are lots of hands on the market. What you're going to see for the television programs is these really high-tech, mechanical-looking hands, and you're going to think, "Wow!" Right? The video. Did we send that out?
I didn't send it out to him, but I was going
So
to
we're
share
gonna
it
we're
with you.
gonna send out a link to a video about a guy that has some super high-tech stuff that look really, really impressive, but not
Very, very expensive.
very expensive and not nearly as impressive as your original gear. All right, nothing close.
Basic,
Impressive or functional?
functional.
As
Basic
in,
is functional.
as in does it work kind of thing?
Right.
If you want to sit and type all day, that what he's referring to would, I believe, no?
Wouldn't even
Wrong.
do that.
Wrong.
So,
Okay.
well, what it would do is it have an algorithm in it, so it would basically make a point finger. So you would be hunting, pecking, okay, and typing like that.
So using my thumb?
He could conceivably do that just as fast. And I've been to Mr. Fisher's house extensively over the course of a decade and more. And I've seen his environment, and he types well, and he does a lot for himself. But obviously still very limited in what he can do because of these things. So when you lose an upper extremity like this, especially if you've got a bilateral situation, it is exceptionally difficult to manage your life.
I met a lady at the Philadelphia airport that was a quad amputee, but she was literally all 4 digits were gone. And she had manual prosthetic arms on both her uppers. And she comes running up to me and says, "You got one of those electric arms. I want to get me one of them."
And how long had she been an amputee?
A long time.
Long time.
I don't know how many years. That's the arm I wear when I ride the trike. You can explain it.
Yeah, it's a manual arm, right? So basically it's going to be body powered. There's nothing electrical about it. When he pulls on that, it opens the terminal device.
Right.
Boy, do I got to pull that hard?
Yeah.
So he's got that many rubber bands. So I started pulling, I was wondering why it wasn't moving because he's got a bunch of rubber bands on there. And that's a lot of pressure. So get a concept of the...
Well, that's because of the trike. When you're pulling the handle trike, they put a compression shock absorber on the front to reduce the vibration or the shaking of the handlebars from the road that you're driving on. And so you don't want that thing to open very easily when you're turning or just driving on that with that thing. If all I use it for stuff around the house, I'd probably have
Can you
2 or
move it?
3 less rubber bands on there.
Okay, so he,
Stop.
and you remove them yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's capable of removing himself. It's not easy to put those on. Usually it takes a special
Must be strong.
applicator to put those on. They're pretty darn strong rubber bands as its individual rubber band. So did you pull on that wire?
You tried.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. Pull,
Well, I'm using shoulder.
pull at the top.
Oh, I just got
Yeah,
it right
no,
there.
you see you're pulling on the, this is the
Okay.
housing. So this is the strap. This is what he would pull on himself. So give that a good tug. See it opens up. So quite a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Okay. So pull on the nylon strap. That's going around his contralateral side. So it's going around his left axilla. Okay.
Then I pull my arm.
And then he has to pull his whole shoulder girdle this way. So he stabilizes the hand, and he pulls his shoulder forward, and it opens the hand and then closes, and opens and closes. Okay? So when he is operating that, he's having to use quite a bit of upper body strength. So if he is having neck problems or anything like that, or if he has any shoulder involvement, any other upper extremity involvement, he's going to have a really difficult time opening that hand. He's got the thing set so tight because of the application that maybe he, who knows, maybe he starts feeling really crummy and can't even open it again. So that's the downside to a mechanical arm or a body-powered upper extremity prosthesis. But they are lighter. They are more reliable from a durability perspective. They're not going to break down. You can get them wet. And you can put on many different terminal devices, and this is considered a work hook. Is that one?
Yeah,
that's a work hook as well.
That's the one with the locking mechanism.
Right. So basically, when he operates this one, there's all these little bits and parts up here to make it functional for even nailing.
The knife blade in place.
Yeah.
Nails.
What have you? Nails.
Different things. Yeah, like I said, it has many different applications.
Yeah. So meant for, we call it a farm hook. Farm hook, work hook, something like that. So super durable. Usually these are steel, which I believe these are. So super. Is it working? So you touch the electrode and it's operating the hand, right? So
Careful, if you lock that on your finger, you're
gonna get hurt.
You're not gonna like the feeling of it.
So it opens and closes, and as much as you're pressing the flexor side, now which side
No,
would
it's
you?
on the inside, ma'am.
Yeah, down on the inside.
Left or
You touch
right.
it. There you go.
The right side,
There you go.
one opens, the other side closes
Yeah.
it.
So very sensitive, right? Just to the touch of the finger, so it's getting some sort of a stimulation
Down a
and
bit.
a signal that it's sensing, right?
See, it's it's the black flipper on the front that's on lock, so it moves really.
Okay.
Which is a good thing, because they won't get hurt then.
Okay, good. We don't want them getting hurt. Pretty cool stuff. So you can feel the buzzing, you can hear the noise. So in a social situation, it's going to stand out that much more. So somebody's going to have to be somewhat, okay with all this buzzing and beeping and, all the things that it does. The left hand, partial finger. You and I worked to try to create some things. We looked into the X finger, I think was what we checked into. Not quite enough finger left to really grab onto to use. Go ahead.
I found a finger on Wish website. You ever go to Wish?
Super inexpensive.
There's Chinese stuff. Okay? And they have a finger with a wrist strap, all one piece. And I don't have no clue as to what the inside of that finger is, but it looks like it's for a person who's missing a part of his index finger. And it would slide over it and then be secured. All these things, the ones that he was referring to from X finger, they're all secured around the wrist. And the problem with most of these things are, they're not made for any kind of physical work. There is if you wanted to wave at somebody and have your hand open and closed, with you're wearing your glove over these things. Because basically all they are is a heavy gauge wire. And as you flex your fingers, these things continue the motion.
So it's very much like the tenodesis, other than it's not capturing this motion to get this motion, right? It's not capturing your wrist extension to get the finger prehension. But what instead it does is it's capturing the metatarsal phalangeal joint flexion, and it further creates this. So it's a parallelogram system that's capturing that motion to create that. So you grasp motion. So as he bends those forward, these come in. They're not super effective. There's no sensation in any of these things. They don't know if whatever they're touching, they don't know if it's hot or cold, right? There are devices out there that are getting to the point where they are starting to send that kind of feedback, but insurance doesn't pay, so guess what? Nobody gets them.
Well, don't they have tips on some of these myoelectric things that have sensors in them?
They do have sensor grip hand is for Autobach has one of those, and it will literally sense if something is slipping out of the hand, and it will grip harder. That's one of the things. Think about this. If you can't tell how hard you're squeezing something, can you pick it up without looking at it? Almost no is the answer, because you got to know how hard to squeeze it. So yeah, the answer. So if you're picking up a styrofoam cup that's full over something on your desk, that there's all sorts of electronics, you got to be really careful, right? So, and with an electronic hand, you got to be really careful because you don't want to puncture the cup or crack the cup, a solo cup. So something like that, just a can of Coke, bottle of water.
Bottle of water. You leave the lid off and you pick it up and you close your hand to it. Next thing you know, you got a little water fountain.
Okay. Right, exactly. So, and did you hear the pulsing? Okay, why was it pulsing? Was it sensing you, or were you?
Yeah, that's the way this one physically.
That's what it operates like.
Yeah.
So not.
So, yeah,
It's hard to get, and that might be a setting that we can fix. But that's not supposed to operate that way. But it is proportional. In other words, depending on how much of a signal he puts through it, the faster it'll open. So.
It's old.
Okay. But
This is the original hook.
it's a while.
So, the original hook, original arm.
Yeah.
That black one was my middle one. My electrodes in it went bad. I ended up going to outside of prosthetics to get some of these things fixed because of the limitation of electrical knowledge the prosthetist has. And sometimes they don't have what's needed to see the problem, not so much to fix generalized issues or to isolate where the problem is. But once you get to where the problem is, what are my options in repairing it,
And if we had to send that thing, let's just say the hand is not functioning properly, by no means do I have the technical ability to work on that hand and the guts of it. So I'd have to send it back to Motion Controls, the company that makes it, and that company charges an exorbitant amount of money. We think the insurance covers that? No. So usually we have to either abandon the hand or the patient has to cash pay for the repair. And the repair is typically multiple thousands of dollars because the cost of the device is multiple thousands of dollars. So the company knows that they kind of got you over a barrel, and they're gonna make sure that you pay. So it's not great. It's not a perfect situation by any stretch. So when somebody smart like this gets all of these things, they find workarounds and hacks, right? They're gonna make it work for themselves. And if you have access to some people that know electronics and can really figure it out, then more power to you. But then what happens to the warranty? Warranty's gone. Yeah. Second you open that thing up or decide to work on it yourself, warranty's shot. So all sorts of things in the way of making people well and treating people right because of all sorts of reasons, right? All sorts of things out there. So what do you prefer to wear?
I like this arm the best.
Okay.
Because of the way, if this fitted better, I would have no problem with this arm, my newest one. But when it was made too tight at the top, and therefore I get 90% in. I get in far enough for the contacts to do their thing, but I don't get in to the bottom of my stump doesn't go to the end of the. Now it doesn't quite go to the end of this either, but it fits me better up here at the top. They're supposed to, let me say one more thing.
Please.
They're supposed to be in some sort of a vacuum system, whereas after you've had them on, they're supposed to, when you go to take them off, like your legs, you get a resistance factor from like a suction.
So it is a true suction fit when he's wearing that. Now, what you're noticing, do that again. Pull it loose and push it back on. Is it suction?
Right now.
Trying to act like suction.
Yeah, that's
Right?
what I'm saying.
So, and there's the valve right there. Okay, so the single valve allows him to, you press the button, he gets out, pushes down. So it's a skin fit suction arm. And with a myoelectric arm, you have to have the electrodes at least touch the skin. Now, does the whole arm have to be skin suction fit? No. But the electrodes have to touch the skin. So if you made it with a locking liner similar to this, right, you could conceivably cut holes in this so that the electrode can push down in through this material, got a hole in it, and touch the arm for him to be able to activate the sensors. So when I fit a myoelectric, those are the kind of considerations. We would love to be able to put him in something like this, like his legs are, same brand, right? Same thing. To be able to lock into the arm so that it's a more positive lock. Because if he's pulling really hard on something, the arm can dislodge, and pulling hard on a motorcycle, he might very well lose his whole arm. So this strap right here is that safety net.
Velcro.
Okay, a little bit of Velcro goes a long way. And this has been, over the course of years, just coming up with a simple setup that's not too difficult to deal with. This is not.
We had that leather type strap.
So that's a triceps pad, right?
We had that on the back of this originally.
So it will go on the back of his arm, call it triceps pad.
And that would stick to me harder than anything. So when you wanted to get out of your arm, releasing that strap from the back of your arm was almost like it was glued on.
Okay, but you can see, I didn't send this one around yet. You can take a look at this one, take a look at the triceps pad. Did the other one have a triceps pad? Yes.
This one
No, it was just this figure 9 strap.
That one had an insert liner in it, which is gone.
Okay, so that had also a liner. So he's got this padded down in there. But when you say but it wasn't a locking liner, but
No.
you had it, so it was covered.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was wearing a liner, which is this, okay, over his limb to push down in there. Did it have a ratchet? No. So there was no locking mechanism that engaged. But look at the leather, right? So the leather's pretty chewed up, very stiff. Gets sweat on, and obviously collects a lot of fluid. So it's not going to be very hygienic over the course of time. Sometimes those are made of plastic. A lot more often than not, they're leather. But all this stuff wears out, heavily used, especially if a person's going to sweat. Here in Florida, it happens a lot. You're going to have major problems as a result, the skin contacting stuff like that over time. So those are the things that end up happening with these, upper limb amputees, that you're putting this older technology on them that doesn't work as well. You can imagine being trapped in one of these things.
Not so comfortable.
Okay? Because it's hot. The person's going to sweat like crazy. Right? So here she is, barely able to make it react. Okay? Yeah. So it's pretty darn challenging. And you can imagine, as he uses something like that, how often do you have to have the cable worked on that one?
Not often.
Not often. So heavy duty, it was well put together.
The only thing wrong with it right now is where the wrist. There, look at it, you got it.
Yeah.
Woo!
Right?
Party!
Yeah, don't stick your fingers down in there to get it captured, right? And so what's the control level of the pinch grip on that? It's the rubber bands or a constant tension through the shoulder, the figure 9 strap, right, to open it up, and then constant eccentric sort of contraction as it closes, and then he grips onto something to the tension he thinks it needs upon visual inspection. But if it's a soft container, he can watch it flex. If it's something hard that might crack, he might crack under the load. So it's a very challenging thing to use upper extremity prosthetics. Usually there always has to be line of sight to the terminal device. They always have to have vision of what they're doing with it to be able to do it, because they can't feel anything. So they have no kinesthetic feedback from the fingertips. So their operating envelope is wherever they can see. So doing something that they...
You almost got it.
Right.
There's an on-off switch there. Push it back.
So they have to operate in front of them typically, and they can't work out of their vision, right? So they're always having to turn to do something, and they don't know what it's touching. They could be, it's touching something, but I don't know what it's touching. So a little bit more personal note, personal hygiene. Having to use the bathroom. Is that
Not with that hand.
okay? Being super careful, and not using that hand. So it's a specific arm. Do you take the arm off?
Worst thing you can do is try to do something on this hand using the hook, because if you grab a hold of your finger with the hook or something,
and panic.
and it doesn't want to release, how do you release it? Because these all have release buttons on them, but if your hand's
reach it.
trapped and you can't reach it,
You start screaming for help.
yeah, literally screaming for help.
Yeah. So obviously a large set of issues that he has to go through. Send that around for visual. And you guys can take a look at the liner. Now I did not do this. This was not. Did I glue that on?
No.
I didn't think I glued that on. I know you had them when I was working with you. So considerably challenging. Years and years of training and effort and trial and error to get him where he is today. Super high, I'll send this one around too, super high functioning individual.
To have it balanced where you have a paddle on both sides of it approximately the same size. Those are paper plates that we used, and then fiberglass them.
Did you hear that? Right? Took a paper plate and literally put fiberglass around it and created that. So obviously some skill level that most people don't have. And you know, it's awesome because he's able to help himself. Because it's, and I can't get paid for that. So if I'm going to do business, I'm going to be giving my time and energy away to make that for him. You know, and over the course of years, had done many things to help him, but I wasn't able to help on that. And thankfully, somebody was local, and he has know-how, and he was able to do it himself. And come up with a design. It's a unique design to him. So really impressive. The shape of that arm portion that the arm goes down into, that is one of the old stands for those liners. Yeah. So the liners used to come with a stand that looked exactly the same shape as that cylindrical, the conical portion of that swimming fin. And he made it, you wrapped it around there and pulled the plastic out, or did you fiberglass right over the top of the stand?
Yeah, fiberglass over.
So the stand is actually in there right now. The plastic stand that it originally came with one of these liners that's on his legs. So obviously extremely resourceful, not going to find that commonly out there. Questions regarding his upper extremities at this point? What anything? Yeah.
What's your dominant hand? Was it your right or your
My right was dominant, yeah.
left? Okay.
I had to learn how to write with my left hand, and that was a real challenge. At least I can write somewhat. You can read it, but
Still not pretty, just
yeah, it's
not
pretty.
flowing looking, not
No.
good print.
But
Yes.
How long did it take you to adapt to the first electric one and then subsequent?
I was lucky because when Rick came to me with this, he told me he was going to have to come out and test me with some kind of electrical device that did a readout on my electric responses.
Myoelectric.
Okay.
Yeah,
From,
registration.
being able to isolate one from the other, and explained to me at the time that if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't get it. So I had time between the time we had that conversation and he brought this piece of equipment out to test me, and I used that time to practice, trying to visualize flexing the one.
So what I want you to notice right now, what he's doing is he's flexing this pinky in particular. Okay. Is that what you move in this arm? Is that which fingers? How are you moving your muscles, or what part of your arm?
I normally contract like my thumb and index to close.
So thumb and index.
To close. I use like this motion to open,
Extension.
and then this index finger is the primary for closing.
So you look up your anatomy, which muscle is doing that, right? So he's using, and it can be that simple. It can be just finding that one muscle to really register on, okay, as opposed to like the whole flexion or extension, okay? So very individual, and it can be that precise as far as the placement. But what does that mean? That means he needs to put the arm on precisely every single time, because he gets it rotated out 4 degrees, 5 degrees. It's no longer going to touch that site, okay? So he has to put it on the correct site. And you know, then he can't, what can't he do in this, maybe out of his control, but what is he really not allowed to do? He's not allowed to go up or down in size, because it's a skin suction fit. So if he drops a whole bunch of size or weight, then the arm no longer fits. Now, of course, that's money for me. Okay.
Cha-ching.
Okay. Because why? Because that means he's had a medical changing condition, and that means I can make another socket at least. Not necessarily make another hand or buy another hand to bill for, but at least we can do another socket replacement,
Which includes the electrodes.
which is very, very expensive. And it's just simple myoelectric electrodes. It's really not mind-blowing stuff, but they're very, very pricey, and the coding for them is very, very pricey. So it's very expensive.
Is
But the
that
terminal
covered by
device is the most
insurance?
expensive. Go ahead.
Is that covered by insurance typically?
Yes,
Or
if it's
usually?
medical changing.
Medicare's 80% of whatever they're charging.
There. So
And then if you got secondary, they'll pick up normally about the same amount.
they're supposed to cover the 20%.
But they normally don't cover it all. They leave
Just enough pain
enough on the table so it hurts your pocket.
to make you not go back.
You know.
Okay,
You
so
don't
what is
want
they put?
that.
They're putting in place. You guys are gonna experience this, right? My parents have amazing insurance, and they basically go to the doctor, things paid for, right? Insurance covers it. Their insurance just cover everything. He's at the stage where he's a little bit older than me, and he's gotten in this realm of Medicare and supplementary, but the supplementary plans now make him pay some money to make him feel the pain so that he doesn't just go out and spend frivolously, right? Frivolously. They want to ensure, insurance companies, want to ensure that we don't over prescribe / provide, okay? Because they want to save money, the insurance company. Of course, he would like everything to be paid for so that he can have a functional life. So if he could have multiple different devices, multiple terminal hooks with multiple arms for multiple purposes, he would be very happy. Right? Right? But that's not the world we live in. And it's very expensive. So this is one of those things you guys in the future can kind of get politically active. That's my little soapbox on that. Yeah.
So I keep hearing you say you don't want to get your finger caught in this thing. So on the myoelectric ones, what's the typical pounds per square inch that they squeeze, or how many?
They'll crack open a walnut.
The
That's
intense
impressive.
ones, yeah, the intense ones can literally crack open a walnut.
Now, when I had that Greifer, which looks like a robotic thing, that's the device I'm referring to.
Mhm.
When it was working properly, that was the reason I got rid of it, was it started having issues. But it still physically worked for just opening and closing it. But anyways, but it would literally crack open shell nuts. Okay, so, and the
And I think what I did in the beginning is I said, it could crack open a walnut.
Yeah.
What's the first thing he wants to do?
Try it.
Max it out. Right? A really strong walnut, maybe break the hand. So obviously, we would love for him to be able to have everything under the sun to be able to make his life that much better. But the reality is he gets as much as we can get him through his insurance company, and as much as they will allow him to have, even if we want to give him more stuff. Any other questions? Anything else that's jumping to mind? Yes, sir.
So he has 4 prosthetics over the course of 12 years. So is it every 5 years you can get a new one?
The
as
key
well as
language,
change?
which on that letter of medical necessity, right, is that there's been a change in medical condition, right? So you're going to write your letters accordingly. You're going to substantiate that change. That's how you get new stuff. The verbiage that is used by Medicare is, the rules are every 3 to 5 years, I forget exactly, that they can't get anything new. But if there's a change in medical condition, that obviates that rule. So you can kind of do the workaround on that. So when you guys are seeing the patient, they literally changed, lost weight. I mean, if he loses 15, 20 pounds, or gains 15, 20 pounds, he may very well not fit in this arm properly and may need a new socket. So that's the kind of stuff you need to consider. If he has a muscular change, if he's, something changes proximally, if he has more problems in his neck, if he gets some neurological condition down where the sensors don't hit the muscle anymore, that operates properly. That's the kind of thing that needs to, be considered. So when you're seeing this patient, that type of information is really critical to use and utilize. So obviously able to do quite a bit. Did you find that left hand, that finger that you got from Wish?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Oh, it's on order.
It's, with them, it could take 2 weeks, you could take 2 months.
Okay, so it's coming straight out of somewhere
China.
overseas, yeah. So, he is pretty darn functional with that left hand. He's got a lot of his thumb left, right? So he's still actually got the nail, but the tip of the finger is gone.
Whatever the chemicals in your body are that creates fingernails, my thumbnail has become similar to that of like a hawk or a
Talon.
eagle or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Very, very strong.
Very strong. It's gotten thicker. And I trim it using a Dremel tool, grinding blade. Because you can't use, if I sat there with a hand file thing, you know. and I
So
don't
do you
like-
hold the Dremel in your terminal
in
device?
this, I hold the Dremel here and I just go around and hopefully I don't miscut.
You can get pretty jacked up with a 10,000 RPM with a nice grit, sandpaper. So let's do this. I'm gonna have you take the arm off. No? Yay or nay? Bad
No,
idea?
that's okay.
It's okay.
That's okay.
I want you guys to see his arm. All right, so let's let him put his arm on, and we'll let him go. Any questions as we
This is
part
a
and move on?
5-second process.
Okay, so we can watch that
Slide
happen.
it in, put the strap up. This is something I created on my own. This strap going around the front of the wrist is what secures the main strap, which is the one that goes around the back. You need the one that goes around the elbow, so if you're driving the vehicle, your arm don't come off from sweat or whatever, all right? But to keep this strap up high enough above the elbow, this strap comes in play. So you don't make this strap tight, you just make it kind of snug.
You won't see this in a textbook.
And then this strap here is the one you apply the pressure to, and it pulls the other strap, and it holds it up. And now, these other ones that come in the manuals and stuff, you cannot straighten the arm out and hold the strap up over the elbow. But with this type of setup, it will stay in place, and you can pull on it, and it,
It's behind the
No.
elbow.
and you can pretty much keep your arm straight up, and it won't pull off.
So you can carry something relatively heavy for people that are having to carry a bucket or something like that. He doesn't have to have the shoulders set up to do that. Mr. Fisher, absolute pleasure seeing you.
All right.
I'm going to move on to some more upper extremity stuff in the bag over there.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming. And